Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. This show was created for and inspired by the thousands of patients I've served. So it's time for me to speak up and speak out on their behalf. With a wide range of experts, we bring you weekly insights diving deep into topics of controversy to bust through the sugarcoating that keeps you and your family stuck in the mainstream. Okay, so today our special guest is Dr. Carolyn Griffin from Santa Clarita, California. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We're a little envious over here in the Midwest with our current weather, and you are out in Santa Clarita, California, where your practice is. She runs a practice, and the name of the practice is Back to Health. You've been in practice for 24 years?
23 years.
Okay.
23
23
years, yeah.
years, great. So you've been around a while and have a very successful practice, and you juggle a lot. So without me telling that story, can you tell us about you and where you came from and how this all came about?
Sure. So I've been a chiropractor for 23 years. Back in December would be my 23rd anniversary of being a chiropractor. I have a practice here in Santa Clarita. I actually have two. I opened a second office 2 years ago, and it's been doing fantastic. We've had last year was wonderful. We were serving our community and seeing a lot of patients and helping everyone get healthy from the inside out. So I've just been enjoying everything that we've been doing. My other side passion is fermentation. I'm also a certified fermentationist, and as a result of doing that, there's a lot of information about gut health and the gut-brain connection and taking fermented foods and how it can actually heal someone's gut and what to do in the process. And there's a lot of things that I've learned along the way that I'm willing to share and hoping to share with all of you.
Cool. So how did you stumble across the fermentation, process? Is there a personal story with how you got into that?
So, yeah, there is. So years ago, and we're talking, 10 plus years ago, I had a vegan raw food woman come into my home, and we had a party in the kitchen. And I invited some girlfriends over, and she taught us how to uncook raw food. And one of the things that she brought up was kefir. And I was like, what is kefir? And I never really felt like I got that question answered. And I just kind of forgot about it. But fast forward, just a few years ago, and one of my patients came in. She's also a personal friend, and said, hey, guess what I'm doing? I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm making kefir and kombucha. I'm like, there's that word again. Like, what is that? And so she explained it to me, and she's like, here, just come over and I'll show you how to make it. And so I went to her house. She showed me and learned how to do both and just started diving in. And so it really started out as just making fermented foods and beverages for my family. And then I realized, of course, the benefits of all of those things for gut health. And then I realized, okay, that's going to make a huge difference for a lot of folks. And the new research that's coming out, even recently, everything has changed. Every year, the research is getting updated on the microbiome. It used to be that we were 10 times more bacteria than human, but just as about only a year ago, it's actually like almost a 1-to-1 ratio. It's like 1.3 to 1. We're actually a little bit more bacteria than we are human, but it's closer than what we thought it was. The research is all, evolving and coming out more and more. So I got so nerdy in this, I would literally read, PubMed articles on like what bacteria is good for what. And it's really interesting of all the things that you could actually do with fermented foods. Like there's certain bacteria, Lactobacillus plantarum, for example, that actually degrades and breaks down pesticides. So even if you can't find a particular organic food, if, for example, a vegetable, if you end up fermenting it, that pesticide is broken down because of that particular bacteria. So that's the kind of stuff that came out of it. And as a result of that, I've been talking to a lot of folks with a lot of gut health issues. And that's the direction I went with my fermentation, is how can I help these folks heal their gut? So I have a course that I've created called the 5 R's of Healing Leaky Gut. And that is in work. It's my baby. It's something that's coming out soon, and I'm excited to share it.
Wow. I can't tell you're excited at all.
Just a little.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. That's awesome. So you had mentioned something really cool there. I mean, if you can, what I'm hearing is, first of all, people think sauerkraut, right? Maybe sauerkraut or maybe pickled carrots or pickled beets or something like that. So can you elaborate and talk about like really, I mean, we can get nerdy and scientific here. Talk to me about how you start to move towards maybe pesticide destroying healthy bacteria that you're going to culture that you can just eat on a regular basis because we're like constantly exposed to that stuff.
So it's naturally occurring when you go through that fermentation process that bacteria is really already starting to develop when you start the fermentation process. So there's a lot of different bacteria that are growing when you start to do that. So you literally just take, and that's what I think is so fascinating is like you're taking a vegetable. There's bacteria on that vegetable naturally. There's bacteria and yeast floating in the air naturally. And when you combine that with a brine or salt water, having that specific amount of salt and water combination, depending on what you're making, pickles are going to be more salty. Other vegetables are going to be a lot less. And when you put that together with a little bit of what we call an airlock, you got to be able to let it gas out, but keep bugs from getting in. So you have to put an airlock on it, and you put it in a pantry out of the sunlight, out of direct sunlight, and you just let it literally ferment and do its thing for anywhere from 3 to 6 days or more, depending on what you're fermenting. All that bacteria is just manifesting, it's cultured, it's growing, and at different points, at different levels, there's going to be a little bit more of some and a little bit less of others, and then it's just going to get to a certain point. So that's what's so cool about fermenting. It's literally like a science project in your kitchen.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see the release of some of your products and definitely a big fan. I'm looking forward to it because, for one, I've always liked fermented foods. Like I was always a sauerkraut fan, even as a kid. Pickled beets, love the beets, but oftentimes people make them with too much sugar, so they have to sweeten it up like after the fact versus just pickling. Mm-hmm. I just know that's common, at least here in the Midwest. It seems like if someone says pickled beets, they're really sweet, sugary, versus they don't have to be.
Right.
I have a bunch of questions that may be selfish because I'm so curious. I don't think they're selfish from a standpoint that it just applies to me, but literally if I understand this, I can also teach it better.
Sure.
Fermented foods, we know cancer thrives off sugar.
Yeah.
So how does fermentation with vegetables actually, is that the same kind of fermentation, yeasty? For example, brewer's yeast has nutritional value, but yeast with candida, I mean, there's a difference. Can you tell us about that or elaborate?
Yeah, so it has to do with the quantity. So, for example, like there is candida in everyone, and to a certain point, a certain level, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if it takes over and there's an overgrowth, that's when it becomes symptomatic, right? So similar to like we all have cancer cells in our body, but our body is able to eliminate and still be healthy. But if it ends up taking over, that's when it becomes scary and dangerous and life-threatening. So it's the same thing. So we have there are some bacteria that are, you would consider, oh, that's scary and dangerous, I shouldn't have that, but it actually serves a purpose. Like everything serves a purpose. It's just the number and amount that will really make a difference, whether you're going to lean toward health or lean towards sickness and disease. So the way I would look at how gut health is important, how the bacteria is important is this. Like you really need to have more good bacteria versus bad. I think that's logical. That makes sense. But there are certain things that you need to do to eliminate the bad in order to get the good to grow more. So if anyone has ever had antibiotics in their life, you're going to completely destroy your microbiome. And, let's say you have a child that has an ear infection. Let's say you have a child that was born C-section. Let's say they were bottle fed. They are at a complete disadvantage right out of the gate. Like what you want to do is get their microbiome to be replenished, because during the birth process, a child is supposed to go through the birth canal naturally. That's the way Mother Nature intended. Yes, there are moments in time where a C-section would be necessary, and that makes sense. Of course, if it's life-threatening, absolutely save the baby, save the mom. But for the most part, what we're finding is that 33% plus births in the United States are elective and kind of like, I want my baby born on May 5th. You know what I mean? Like you're picking the day. And that's not always a healthy choice. Like what you should do is let nature take its course. And one of the main reasons why, when it comes to gut health, is because when the baby goes through the birth canal, they're picking up a lot of bacteria from the mom. And that bacteria, it's usually high in bifido. And if it's high in bifido, that actually will heal the gut or mature the gut lining more quickly, which is going to help that baby become healthier. Then if the baby is also breastfeeding, the baby is going to latch on, and there's bacteria in that world as well, and the baby is going to be stronger and healthier there. But what do we find? We find that they have C-sections, and sometimes I get it. I don't want to offend anybody, but yes, there are times when it's necessary, and I do get that. So if that's the case, there's things that we can do to help replenish the gut health, the baby's gut bacteria, I should say. But then, breastfeeding as well. We tend to stop breastfeeding at 6 months and put them on, cow's milk or something solid or I should say formula. And all of that is, meant to mimic mom's milk, but you're not going to have anything close to it. There's nothing like it. And a lot of bacteria from nursing, as well as the
vaginal canal.
Thank you. Makes a huge difference in order for that baby to become healthier. So those are some of the things. And then let's say, because the baby was born C-section, and as well as bottle fed instead of breastfed, they have a higher risk of diabetes. They have higher risk of obesity. They have more chance of getting ear infections. They tend to be more unhealthy. And if you have an ear infection, you're going to be on antibiotics. So now you've just completely wiped out whatever good bacteria you have. So what does that mean? There's an overgrowth of bad, and then they're going through their life, and they're seemingly unhealthy for a lot of different reasons. And the longer that they have that situation, the worse off it's going to be. So that's where we would step in and say, okay, what can we do? How can we actually replenish the good bacteria so that they can actually have a chance and get healthier? It's cool.
So that said, you got fermentation in terms of vegetables. You can make kefir. I saw a couple of your videos. So let's talk about the types and the difference between, because I hear this a lot, as do you, I'm sure, in your practice, but I live in the dairy state.
Okay.
So there's a lot of dairy promotion, which I completely understand and respect. And yet I also, as would you, I would guess, as a holistic provider, understand that there's the casein and the pasteurization makes it really, it's a difficult to digest protein that creates a lot of stress on the immune response. That said, aside from just being lactose intolerant, which some people, they automatically associate cow's milk with lactose versus there's other challenges that it can have with it. Mm-hmm. That said, how do you get some foods into little kids that aren't like yogurt, which only, I'm going to let you be the expert at like the flora in the bacteria in yogurt versus kefir. I think you're the one who told me. It was really cool, by the way, your stat.
Yeah.
Numbers. You gave me numbers in yogurt, numbers in kefir. I loved it.
So I'll give that to you again for your viewers. How's that sound?
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, like, yogurt, when someone takes an antibiotic, they're like, okay, I need to drink or I need to eat yogurt because I need to make sure I don't get candida, right? Or that.
So that education has changed, which is good. That at least that they're thinking about it.
Right. That's good. But here's the thing: what really matters is the number of strains of bacteria. The diversity is what actually makes the difference. Okay. So here's the thing: like in yogurt, there's about 7 to 10, I should say, different strains of bacteria. So a number of amounts of bacteria that are actually in yogurt. In kefir, there's 36 to 50 strains of different types of bacteria. So right away, quick, you can say 7 to 10, 36 to 50. This is better. Kefir is going to be better. And here's the best part. Yogurt might feed the bacteria that's already in your gut. Kefir will colonize and actually grow more because it's going to start to continue to replenish. So that is super important because we're trying to grow more bacteria and more of the good bacteria. So kefir is going to play a big role in that regard. When it comes to dairy in general, I get this a lot because I never bought milk until I started making kefir. Like I didn't ever buy it. Like that's just not I was anti milk just based on, it can cause a lot of sickness and skin diseases or issues and eczema and allergies and asthma and all these other things. So I never bought it. But then when I started making kefir, I did. It's like, whoa, like I've never bought so much milk ever. And that's what I'm doing. But here's what's cool about kefir. Kefir, yes, you mentioned lactose. It's it's lactose free, at least 99%. So it's going to have always a little bit. We don't ever want to say it's 100% gone, but the kefir grains actually eat all the lactose. That's what it feeds on. And so because it's eating all the milk sugars, that's why the end product is actually quite tart. So it's not sweet at all. So when you drink milk, it's actually kind of sugary. It tastes sweet. But when you drink kefir, it's very tart because it's eating all the lactose. So people that are lactose intolerant can actually drink kefir made from milk. That's number one. The second point of that is that, it's got high bacteria, it's got lactose free, but the only thing is if a person is lactose intolerant, they can take it. But if they like you mentioned, casein sensitivity, it's not going to work because casein is not broken down during the fermentation process.
Got it.
They shouldn't drink it.
Got it. So is casein also found in goat and sheep's milk? Mm-hmm. It is. So same process all across the board. Yeah.
Well, the protein might be slightly different as far as I know for goat's milk, it's going to be more easily digestible. And that's something that is good. Lactose is found in all of them across the board. Yeah.
It's also eaten up in all of them too, though, about 99.9%.
Correct. So people that have issues with lactose, kefir's great. If it's a casein sensitivity, they might have an issue. So what I do recommend for them is you can still take the kefir grains and you can put it in coconut milk, almond milk, or another nut milk that you might not have an issue with, and you can actually make kefir out of that.
Cool beans. Who'd have thunk? So does that have to have sugar in it or like sugar added?
I've done both ways. I was taught that you should add some, but I've done it both ways, and I haven't found a difference. So I do it without. I put the kefir grains in. I can get away with about 3 rounds. Most people can get away with 3 batches, I should say, of making, for example, coconut milk kefir. But then what you're going to have to do, because the kefir grains are live bacteria and yeast, you still need to feed them. And what they feed on, again, is lactose. So you need to still put it back in cow's milk every few batches in order to revitalize them so they can feed, or else they will die.
That is totally science project at home. I'm like, I can't wait to get started. So as an example, I don't do well on dairy. It's just been something I discovered as a kid with ear infections, more on my story at another point, or it's already been told in some of the podcasts. But the point is that story is like ever evolving, and it comes up with historical things in terms of who we're talking to. That opened up my door to other options for protein. I don't do well with whey. I was, bodybuilding, training, kind of historical, not like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but, always into being fit and balanced that way. And so I've gone through several different stages of understanding, how my body responds, but it's not like I ever had really like quote unquote gut issues. It would show up somewhere else in my body. And even like with whey, it's not like I had symptoms. I just found out that, it wasn't a good food for my blood type. Okay. Is where it started to open the door. So that said, if I use dairy, and I've shared this with my patients, if I use dairy, I can get away with milk because it's not like lactose intolerant that I'm picking up. It's that my immune system gets recruited to take care of it rather than my digestive system. And so if I use, for example, I'm away at a conference, and I have Starbucks with cream, 1 morning, 2 mornings, 3 mornings, no problem. 3 weeks later, after use for maybe 4 to 5 days, I'll get a sinus infection, or I'll just feel like, it's like, sure enough, it comes back. So to me, my body deals, even though it's not dealing with it. I don't have the symptoms, and all of a sudden, boom, my immune system's crashing as a result of that chronic stress. I pull that out, it doesn't happen. So it was this ongoing experience. I mention that because many times people don't know what they're up against with some of their dairy, and you and I had this conversation when we met I think, and it was like you had said, you know what, if it's not lactose, then you shouldn't have a problem with it, because this is really lactose free for the 99.9%. And I think a body could deal with that as well, right? You could deal with that better.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, so I'm hearing what you're saying is that you do have an issue with whey, and there is whey obviously in kefir. So here's what I would recommend. So if you really have an issue with whey, milk kefir might not be the best option either for you, because there is whey in it. So what I end up doing when I make my probiotic cream cheese, which is basically, here's my kefir, and then instead of just like putting it in the fridge and then, or I should say doing a second ferment, stick it in the fridge, and now it's going to be this delicious strawberry drink the next day or later that day, I might just strain my grains, leave it on the countertop. It'll separate into curds and whey. It is half whey, half curds. And so if that is what's creating your issue, then I would say that milk kefir is not going to be your friend, that I would actually just do coconut milk kefir. And that's okay too. You might, or if you like cream cheese, I mean, you can separate those curds and whey. You can then just have the curds. And if you don't have a casein sensitivity, you should be fine with that.
Okay, cool. So when you say milk, you're saying cows and sheep and goat, or just cow are you referencing?
I have not done the research on sheep and goat as to how that would translate. I'm not sure.
Okay, so I'm going to make it a personal project to help you with this too.
That would be cool.
Well, anyways, we've had great success with keto in our office, and a lot of them don't have good gallbladder or liver function where they can digest fats well. So we work through them, and they respond brilliantly in a doctor-directed style keto where they realize their weak spots. My point is, many of them are dairy-free. And so that part of it, if we can help answer some of that question, you'd help a ton of people, and I'll help with it just by gathering information, somewhat selfishly, but also to just be like, contribute and go. Yeah. I really want to understand the difference between goat, sheep, because sheep feta, not a problem when I've consumed it.
And here's the thing, like for me, I don't have access to sheep's milk. Like I live in California, not at all close to, I mean, maybe I could find it, but I don't know. Goat's milk, here's my problem. Like I really wanted to like it. I cannot handle it. I don't like it. It's something just makes me, I'll never experiment with it to even know. So for me, I don't even go there, even though I know it has lactose. I know that across the board for goat, sheep, camel. I mean, all of that, it'll have the lactose. As far as their protein and that I didn't research because it wasn't pertinent to me, but if you don't mind, hey, look it up and let's have another conversation to where we can figure that out. Maybe I should just experiment with goat's milk and see what happens with that curds and whey, what occurs with it. That'd be interesting as well.
In your lab.
Yeah.
So that was a little tangent, but it's to address a lot of the holistic viewpoints here in my specific region. Like we have a lot of access to those kind of cheeses and whatnot and dairy products. I've used the goat kefir thinking that was a good option for me. It may not be, so I've gotten away from that, but it's okay because there's so much more to talk about with this. When you talk about like now using nut milk kefirs, that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. So, and then we just need to know if there's plenty for it to eat, even the natural based sugar in that nut milk, not added sugar, then you're good to go.
Sugar, like literally, I might put in a date. Yeah, it's not like I'm adding sugar. You could add maybe, a quarter teaspoon or something just to have it in there. But I've just put in like half of a date. I'd cut it open, take the pit out and just put it in there. And that seems to give it enough. And it's kind of gives it a little bit of a flavor anyway. And then because it's got that little extra sugar, it's going to be a bit more effervescent. At the end product will be a bit more effervescent, which is yummy and fun too.
You're saying all the right things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I like coconut milk kefir. You could do it from the carton or the can. It's keto friendly. If you're doing a lot of this stuff with your patients, they can have the benefits of the probiotic with the, being keto friendly. That's awesome. They can do that.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So do you want to get into anything with the R's?
Yeah, we can get into it quickly with you. I know that you're running short on time a little bit, but I want to just touch base on it real quick.
We're good.
So the 5 R's, and the 5 R's are remove. What we're going to be talking to our patients about is cleaning up their diet, removing the things that are going to be triggers or not healthy for them, and obviously add in the whole food nutrition. That's going to be super important. So get rid of the GMOs and things of that nature. Repair. The second thing that we want to do for our patients is repair their gut lining, because we talked about if a patient has leaky gut, or if they've had C-section, or if they were a C-section baby, or they've had major digestive issues because of a poor diet for years and years and years, we're going to need to repair the gut lining before we go through a major detox, or else it's going to seep in through. I mean, the cell is only like one cell thick, so that it can seep through into their bloodstream and wreak havoc that way. So we want to make sure that their gut lining is healed up. And then what we want to do is revitalize. I'm checking my notes because I'm just like, I don't want to mess it up. But yeah, we want to revitalize. What that means is boost their immune system, boost their adrenals, make sure they're ready for what's to come. And then the fourth R is renovate. And I call it renovate because if you've ever renovated a house, if you've ever renovated, like, say, the kitchen in your home to remodel it, you're going to tear it all down. That's where we weed out the microbiome. We're going to kill off all the parasites, the fungus, the bad bacteria, get rid of it all. There's specific herbs and supplements that are recommended for this particular process. So that's why you're getting your body ready for what's to come. And then last is rebuild. That's when I actually incorporate the fermentation, not before. Because if you do have SIBO, for example, like a small intestine bacterial overgrowth, having fermentation or fermented foods early on is actually not a good idea. So there's a process and step-by-step of what actually needs to happen. Prebiotics is a big buzzword today as well. But if you do prebiotics too soon, guess what you're going to feed? Obviously, it feeds bacteria. Not just the good bacteria, but it's going to feed the bad. You want them not to be strong and healthy. So you should not actually be taking in fiber-based prebiotics early on. You should actually wait till you actually renovate all the bad bacteria out first. So you're going to want a different form of that beforehand. So that's the order. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm working on. And hopefully that's going to make a lot of sense for a lot of your viewers.
Well, for one, thank you, by the way, for just putting that in perspective. I think everyone wants a handle on what does this look like. And honestly, many people are going to jump and take a piece of information.
Sure.
And like, I need fermented foods. They're really good for me. So I start eating a lot of them. And what happens is, you're right. They're trying something healthy. It's kind of like when we look at the methylation process. If they're not methylating certain things like, for example, sulfur, it's really hard to have great Brussels sprouts, broccoli, and cauliflower when they're really actually good for us, but the body's not able to detoxify and break down. If we're going to jump into fermentation and we have SIBO, it's why it doesn't work. And they're like, well, I've tried that. It doesn't work. It's like, wait, you just didn't go through the right steps. I love that distinction, Carolyn. And I would absolutely agree with my clinical experience in how that is disruptive when they just put it in the wrong order and they wonder why it didn't work.
And then they give up, and that's the sad part.
Yeah, then now they're excluded from it. Oh, I've tried that. It doesn't work for me. It's like, okay, tell me what happened. How did you start? It's like, well, no wonder. Or they were diagnosed with IBS but never SIBO. So back to kids, like we said, kefir. And is there something with kombucha around the sugar? Because I know there's a kombucha craze right now.
Yeah, I have a kombucha craze. I love it too. But you know what? Honestly, when it comes to, of all the fermented beverages, mostly kefir, kombucha, if I were to look at the two, kombucha is not for everyone. There's a high histamine issue that can happen. If someone has a histamine sensitivity as well, that can be an issue. So there's certain probiotics that I would recommend prior to that. Sugar, it can be high. It depends on when it was actually bottled. That's why I actually prefer people to make it themselves, because they can actually taste when they are actually going to bottle it, and make it a little less sugary and a lot more you got to taste it. Again, science project, is it going to go from the sweet tea to right before it turns into that vinegar? You got to when do you want to bottle it? And you can do it whenever you want. I've gotten busy and it's like, whoops, it's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and let me go ahead and do this. Sour as all get out, but I know it's good for me. It's okay. and I still bottle it anyway. And I just, make it with lemon, ginger, and it's good. I like it. It's super tart when I let it go that far, but I can guarantee you then there's pretty much no sugar.
Right.
So it really is like when you bottle it. So I have to say, if you're buying it, they're probably not spending that, it's going to have a higher sugar content anyway. So you just got to be careful. Just look at this. You're going to be better off, I would say, reading the label, how much sugar is in it. Maybe original is going to be better than a sweeter one and that kind of thing, or go with a green one as opposed to like a fruity one. And that's going to probably taste a little better, or be better for you, I should say. Maybe not taste as good, but it'll be definitely better.
Right. Yeah, that was very important caveat, because I think I know I've seen multiple brands. I've tried a ton of them and enjoy it, but also realize that they started shifting gears towards consumerism and selling more, which is you're on the sweet side, and yet it's still kombucha. But there's some really great brands that do keep their sugar low, and I'm going to encourage, like Carolyn said, whenever you can manage your own, and that's where your system comes in. You're teaching them a really cool, easy home way to do it with your awesome ideas and your strategy. I mean, it's literally a quick step in. So tell us more about where this goes for people that are interested in learning how to ferment, or in buying kits, or something that allows them to get started. Where do we start?
So when I started getting into all of this on making it, and I just wanted to share with everyone, I got to the point where I was literally FaceTiming friends and helping them along once they got their grains. And I just found like I couldn't do it for everyone. So I literally put together a website just for all of you, like anyone who's interested. So my website is called myculturedlife.com, and it literally will show you how to make kefir, how to make kombucha, how to make pickles, how to make sauerkraut, how to make shrubs, which is a whole nother type of fermented drink from like the 1800s. Really cool. And it's fun. It's like, in some of the hip bars, they use that as, the syrup, and then they would add alcohol or something like that. But you can make shrubs. And so that's where you can learn how to make everything. Okay. On there, you can also buy my kefir grains. I have them in a dormant state, so therefore I can ship them to you. I've shipped them over quite, all over the place. And so then on my website, we'll show you how to reactivate them, because they're going to be in a dormant state. You need to activate them. It'll take anywhere from 3 to 7 days, depending on how cold your home is. Once it's activated, boom, you're in business. You're going to have kefir every single day. I'm going to be adding my kombucha scobies on the site as well. That's going to be a little bit more of a process to get shipped to you. I have shipped them to Northern California once already, and I've got that system down, so I can absolutely send that off to you. That's where I'm at. On that site, I'm going to be working on ebooks. You're going to have some ebooks to kind of keep everything together. There's recipes on there for you to try, some delicious recipes for kefir, kombucha, and like I mentioned, the fermented vegetables. And it's got the base, and it's like, here you go, try it out, take your time. If I were to give you any advice, I'd say if you're going to enter this world of fermentation, start with kefir first, because everything else can get overwhelming. Once you get that down, then I would say go ahead and start with kombucha. After you get that down, I'd say go ahead and start with cultured foods. That would be the order I would put, just based on complexity.
That's going to be one of your ebooks too, right? You might as well just...
Yeah,
right?
It's going to be a trilogy. It's going to be kefir, kombucha, and shrubs. So that's going to be like a trilogy.
What's the last word?
Shrubs.
That's what I thought you said.
Uh-huh.
Shrubs. This is the first time I'm hearing that.
Yeah. So have you heard of like fire cider and things of that nature?
Yes.
Fire cider. So it's the same type of way you would make fire cider. And, but you would basically just take, so for example, a great blend is oranges and thyme. And you would put that in with some apple cider vinegar, and whatever else, and just let it sit and ferment for a couple of weeks. There's 2 versions I've got on my website of how I learned how to make it. So I'm sharing that with everyone. And then it basically gives you this syrupy, the end result is like this bit of a syrup, and you can literally add like club soda, and it turns into this delicious orange soda for kids, and it's healthy. And so it's like probiotic. It's got apple cider vinegar in it because that's one of the main bases that you're going to be fermenting it in. And so delicious, So I've got, I think, 3 or 4 different blends or recipes for that. Try it. It's awesome. I think I put fire cider on there. I had a cold coming on. I literally had a couple of shots, wiped it out. If you've got something going on, it's like a little, it's like tequila going down. It's super hot, but it's good for you. And so I just knocked it out, and that stuff sits in my fridge. And when I need it, boom, I do it, and it's awesome. So yeah,
that's a version of a shrub.
That is a version of a shrub. I think it is. Yes, I would consider it. Yes.
Wow, this is cool. You got some knowledge in there, girl. I love it.
Thanks. The website's fun. Check it out. Just look around. And then I will be adding some other things. And my course is my baby right now. And that's what I'm working on and developing. And I want to get that done as soon as possible so that I can share that with all of you guys as well.
Well, and I know you're tremendously busy. So not only do I thank you for taking the time with us today, but I know you're busy and you're home on lunch, right, from your practice. You got to go back and see patients.
I'm actually still in the office.
Oh, you're still in the office. There you go. So yeah, I'm the one who has to run back, but yeah, it's because somehow the internet works better here at times. But I am so thankful for the knowledge, and there's so many more questions I have. But maybe we can
down the line. How's that sound?
I think we will, because there's going to be some reports back. I mean, there's plenty of people that I take care of that are concerned about sugar intake. They're concerned about fermented foods, feeding sugars and whatnot. And it's like, we gotta find some clarification there, because all these schools of thought, there's paradoxical information coming in, and it's like, there's so many health benefits in that gut biome and flora that and it's fascinated me as well. So I'm just excited for you to be able to share some more of that knowledge, because I'll have more questions as well. Is there anything you want to close with?
No, I think I got everything. I appreciate your time and having me on your show. I really appreciate doing this interview with you. It's been great. I love meeting you. I'm so glad that we have this connection, and we're definitely on the same wavelength on our thoughts on health and wellness, and I love that.
Yeah. It's the funny thing, but you've seen this, by the way. Carolyn's the real deal. She set a date, okay? She said she puts a date in there. I don't know if many people realize the significance of that. She didn't say just add more sugar, like refined sugars. I mean, how many times do we hear that? There's this organic or holistic viewpoint, and then they're adding like crud. And it's like, she's using one of the best sugars for our body, and it's natural. And it's like she said, a half a day will solve the problem, and it adds taste. And my dad was a chef, so I'm like really in tune with like food choices. So
I can learn from you. You can help me make some cool stuff.
I will, and it's all by default. It's like, here's something. It's like a crazy fact that nobody cares about. Anything that browns in a pan is sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a silly little thing. Onions, carrots. So it's like, now you talk about glycemic index. So when people don't understand where they're getting their sugars, oh no, I don't have any sugar. It's like, well, yeah, you do. You just don't know where it's coming from.
Right.
So it's powerful, and I just think it's so cool what you're doing. So what I'm looking forward to from the recipe standpoint are what kind of vegetables I can start fermenting to add variety. And I loved when you said diversity, because that's what triggered like this whole awakening for me, is vegetable diversity gives different flora, different bacteria, like you said, right? I mean, they all carry a different biome.
Yeah, and that as well as the different types of fermented foods. So not just the different vegetables, but kefir versus kombucha versus cultured foods. That's giving you a really wide variety of a whole lot of different stuff that's going on. So yeah, but I love fermented beets. I love adding, no sugar, of course, just the beets itself, but to give it that really a good flavor, I've added 1 or 2 leaves of basil, and it just is amazing. And that little bit changes the whole taste. No, let me give you one more. So the other thing that I do for kefir, instead of adding like sugar or like a fruit, like I normally would add like a strawberry or strawberries or blueberries or some fruit, which tastes so good anyway. But I like to actually use it as a base for a salad dressing. I put in 2 cloves. I put in dill and garlic cloves and just let that second ferment. And that adds as a base for salad dressing. Amazing.
You got my stomach talking, girl.
Heck yeah.
Can you say Pavlov?
We got to figure that out for you, though, with the coconut. We got to figure that one out and how to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Carolyn. I will, of course, be in touch. All your information will be in our thread. I've already posted some things right under this. That's going to be on, frankly speaking, with Dr. Wade versus Ananson Chiropractic. But I'll move it over. But I talked about kefir, kombucha, and shrubs. MyCulturedLife.com is on there. The SIBO, because you mentioned it, people don't always know what that is, and that's a great hit you made. And anything else you want me to add, you can shoot over too, because I want to support what you're doing. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, folks, you know what to do. If you like this, boom, share it and give us a thumbs up, and check out Dr. Carolyn Griffin. As I said, she's the real deal, and she's on it for a good cause. She's solving problems in California.
Thank you so much. You have an awesome day.
You too, Carolyn. Thanks for your time.
As always, I just want to thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, and I look forward to our next time. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, frankly speaking, drwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share, so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice and their health. Speaking up means you matter. We'll see you next time.